Welcome to Behind and Beyond the Bars. I'm Jeff Shafer. Don Harvey. Don Harvey has become a friend of mine over the last 4 to 5 years. He and his wife are now involved with Identity Ministry out of Butler, Indiana. Prior to that, though, he was a successful businessman, and it was out of searching for what's next, more purpose, that he became a chaplain and ultimately now helps lead Inspiration Ministry. He's so inspiring because of the joy that he has and the purpose that he and his wife have in totally transforming the lives of men and women through their re-entry program. Additionally, what makes their ministry very unique is they also have a church. And that church historically serviced mainly their own community. Today, however, if you attended, you would see Butler residents who are also attending with their residents as well. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I know you're gonna love hearing his story. Don, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think this was maybe the third CMCA where we've met each other or at least had discussions. Does that sound right? Or it doesn't matter if it is or isn't.
Yeah,
just say it.
Oh, that sounds right.
Okay, good. But
we'll say yes. This is the fourth CMCA. Yeah, 2 up here, then Orlando.
Yeah.
Now this is the
I think
fourth,
you're right.
fourth one up here.
The reason why I bring that up is, so I don't know what that is, 3 years, 4 years. I don't remember exactly, but it's been 3 or 4 years that you and I have at least have known each other. And it's amazing how, I mean, this is relationships, how they work, but we met several times. I've actually been to Indiana,
right?
And we are now partners on some stuff. So it's really cool how this is all coming together. So anyways, I want to get you on this podcast today, specifically because of your story and how you were at point A, like most normal people doing normal things. And now, I don't know, I think you're not at
Whatever
point B.
normal is,
And you're
right?
not at point B right now. You're at like point Z. I just remember hearing your story, having dialogues with you, and the passion that you have for this, not to put you on the spot, is infectious. Sure. So I'm anxious to get into this. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So with that, let's start with, and you don't have to go into complete depth because I'll probably ask you questions along the way. But I think you know what I'm talking about. If you were at point A in your life as a business guy, how did you go from that to what you're doing today?
Good entry question. So living life, always been zealous for Jesus, been engaged with the church, but I was at a point, I think, in my life that, interestingly enough, I really started asking God this question. Like, really, Lord, is this it? I've been going to church week after week and growing and learning and being discipled, but I kind of hit this season where I felt dry.
So there were actual prayers around that.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is interesting because it's a bit of a lead-in. I'm asking God, is this it? There's got to be something more,
And what were you feeling? I think I know, but is this it? What's that mean?
Probably just a sense of lack of purpose. It's one of those things in the church, I would say, there's forward movement. It's like a treadmill. I know we're taking steps forward. Mm-hmm. I know the church is doing good things. We're accomplishing things. So we're taking steps, but it's like a treadmill, but we're not actually getting anywhere. That's what it felt. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was just personal for me. Mm-hmm. But that's certainly how I felt at the time.
Or at least it was slow enough that it didn't feel like you're moving.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So you start praying this, and then what happens?
So I joined this men's prayer group on a Monday night. Dozen or so guys from a few different churches. So I thought maybe this will spark something. And I would say it was maybe 6 months into that was when I met Andy.
Okay.
The founder of Inspiration Ministries, who was looking for some men after he got out of incarceration, and found our little men's prayer group on Monday night. And then this guy sitting in front of me telling me he just got out of prison, which was weird to me. I didn't really know anybody that just got out of prison. I didn't know the difference between jail, prison. Right. Are they the same? Are they different? I didn't know any of that. Didn't have any exposure to that. But there was something that was very unique about him and his story, because he didn't grow up in church. He met Jesus in a jail cell before he spent his 5 years in prison. And so I just asked questions, and there was just something that stirred in me And I guess more than anything, this is how I got started. It was my introduction to Andy in his past and his vision for a future, serving the least, the last, and the lost, because he was that guy. And I just saw this opportunity because I saw the church wanting to connect to those that were lost and broken, hurting. But I also recognized that the church didn't have a conduit to they didn't cross paths necessarily. So the church is over here wanting to serve the least, the last, and the lost, the brokenhearted.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here are a bunch of those folks over here. But how do you connect those? And all of a sudden this light bulb kind of went on in my head and thought, oh my gosh, Inspiration Ministries, what Andy's doing, this could be the perfect conduit. That's kind of how it started.
So what was Inspiration Ministry doing at that time? Or is it the same thing today?
So really, Inspiration Ministries started in prison when Andy felt the call. And really, they found and experienced a lot of revival in the camp that he was serving his time in. He felt like God told him, hey, it's time now, not when you get out, but there's men that are hurting and broken right around you. That's how he would say it. So, of course, for me, I met him a couple months after he got out of prison. And really, Inspiration Ministries was just a vision of what could be, serving those that are coming out of incarceration, those that are broken, those that are going to come out of prison and incarceration after him. He had his parents that were still together that helped support him. He had a little bit of a support structure around him, but he knew these brothers that he left behind had nothing. And nobody. Their people either were gone, they had died, relationships were burned, broken, busted, and they had nothing. So he thought, I'm going to be a bit of a forerunner for those that come behind me.
Okay, so you're introduced to Andy, and I know Andy, and that guy is sold out.
Yes, he is.
And I mean that in an amazing way. He's the Energizer Bunny. I wish we had a bunch of those guys. Well, I'm sure there are, but how did you go from, okay, you're a business guy, you're now in a Bible study, you're meeting him. What next?
So really my story is this. At that time I was an application engineer for an automation company. And so I spent a lot of my time doing office work in a coffee shop. Andy opened up a coffee shop. That's part of his story of when things began, right across from the courthouse and catty corner to the jail, just to start serving men. And so I would go in there and hang out and get to know him. He got to know me. We shared our stories. And really, it was one of those days leaving and driving home. And this is part of my story. I really felt like God communicated something to me, nudged me about being this man's friend. And I thought that seemed strange. What do you mean his friend? Of course, the way my mind works, I'm like, well, you got to define what friend really means, God. How do I do this thing right? But that's really, I thought he was saying to my spirit, just be this person's friend.
Okay.
And as I'm talking about that in my head, I felt like God actually interrupted me and said, no, Don, I'm calling you to be his friend. I thought, oh, okay, this is a pretty clear direction. And of course, like a lot of us, we're looking for, what do I do, God? What do you want from me? And so here I get an answer, and I thought, okay, I kind of locked into that. I thought, okay, I can do this. I can be this man's friend.
So you became his friend?
I became his friend, and I became one of either his first or his second board member. I became the chairman of the board when he filed and started the 501c3 of Inspiration Ministries.
Okay.
And that was 14 years ago.
Okay. There's still a gap because you were a business guy. You're on the board. Well, what are you doing today?
So today I serve still as the chairman of the board for Inspiration Ministries, and Andy's vice president.
Okay.
And really the functions I perform at Inspiration is I do a lot of the capital projects. So we've accomplished $6 to $7 million worth of projects up to date. And I'm in the middle of either the beginning or the wrap up of about $4 million of capital projects currently. So Andy and I both together really do a lot of the strategic, I would say the strategic creative component of Inspiration. We're very entrepreneurial. I know that's a business term, but we're creative, we're entrepreneurial, and we're innovative. And I think that's been a big part of, I don't even want to use the word success, but I think that's been a big part of the impact and how God's used us together.
So obviously, I know your ministry fairly well. So how do you make an income?
from the ministry.
Do you have a business job?
So I'll fill in the gap in the middle of the story.
Okay.
So that's how I met Andy. We talked about that. And now today I serve full-time with the ministry.
Okay. So you're full-time on the ministry. Okay.
Full-time on the ministry. Now that happened, because this ministry is tough, reentry, recovery, the incarcerated, those that are justice involved, it's challenging. There's a lot of passion in it, and there's a lot of pain involved in it as well.
It's a great way to say it.
It's dynamic. It's messy, but it's also extremely rewarding. All of those things all go together, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, but for it to be so rewarding, it has to be so messy. If you don't have the messy, I don't know how it's as rewarding.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That seems to be our experience.
Yeah, okay. Keep going.
Because it's been hard, and along the way, it's been extremely difficult at times. Very challenging, very painful. Not everybody loves reentry ministry. Not everybody loves the idea that you're serving a bunch of men that have come out of prison, that have felonies and, a variety of backgrounds and pasts. Not everybody loves that. And unfortunately, not even every church in your community loves that. Certainly not every neighbor loves that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's challenges along the way, but God's faithful. Anyway, so kind of to fill in the middle gap, it was 2019 is where I felt like I was personally called to step into the ministry full time.
All right.
God had been so good because business was really good for me. I feel like he gave me a lot of favor. I was making more money monetarily than I had ever made before, even though I kept working less. It was really, the more I worked in the ministry on the side, the more time it took of my time. And the less I worked, the more impactful I was at work and the more I actually made. That's a whole nother story in itself. But anyway, so I finally got to a point where I felt like I was called, and both me and my wife, at the beginning of 2020, quit our secular jobs, I guess, and stepped into ministry full time.
What was that experience like?
Probably more exciting for me, a little scarier for my wife, not to categorize or pigeonhole women, but they want security and they want safety. But I think for me, I'd been looking for this day to come for a long time. And so to feel like this was the season was exciting for me. It was an adjustment because I went from making, in relative terms, a decent income. God was very good to us, and we had a very good living, to not making much of anything.
I love it when I could see it on your but your face, you actually had a big smile when you're about to say, not much.
It was I still have people to this day look back and say, how did you do that? Or why did you do that? Or what's going on in your life now, Don? And that's been over 6 years ago. And I remember this story. I remember telling Michelle, I said, well, if I look at our savings, even if we throttle our lifestyles back, I think we can make it 3 years. Not sure what we'll do after that. But again, now it's been 6 years later, and God's taken care of us, and it's been nothing short of tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm more fulfilled, more content to be in that place that God's called you to be. I think is you find peace in that and contentment in that. Even in the difficult times, there's still a peace. It's like the peace that Jesus found in the midst of the storm, in the raging seas. I used to pray for calm waters, and I had to learn the lesson of, no, Don, you have to find peace in the midst of the storm.
This podcast is brought to you by CMCA, where our mission is to connect, equip, encourage, and strengthen Christians as they fulfill the Great Commission and corrections. You can find more training and resources at cmcainternational.com. How are you different today than you were six years ago? Or
when we speak at churches and share about the ministry and what God's done and what we're looking for him to do and the impact that we want to make in the community, one of the things I communicate, because I mean this sincerely, is that whether you're a resident in the program or you're staff in the program or you're a volunteer or a board member, the truth is we're all in his program. Like we're all learning. Volunteer, church member, resident, staff. So there is no real graduation from the program because we're in his program. And so because he's teaching all of us all the time. For me, I think you said, what have I learned? Well, I've learned the most. And I would say to characterize Don 14 years ago was a guy that was probably a little bit pharisaical, arrogant, thought I had everything figured out. And God got to humble me in a very good way. In a good way. What I recognize is that men and women coming out of incarceration or addiction or struggles, brokenness, I think God had to teach me two lessons. Number one, that anything they've ever done or thought or crime they committed is all in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
All in my heart. When he says, none are righteous, no, not one. No one seeks God. So that was me. And I had to learn that.
That's a big one to get there.
But it's an important one.
It's a very important one.
He humbled me in that way. And it was really good. Sometimes I say, I'm a recovering Pharisee. It's been 30 days since my last critical judgment.
Hey, that's longer than mine.
But because of that, I gained an appreciation for these men and women that we serve because they're great men and women. They really are.
Did you have a second thing you learned? I jumped in.
The other piece is that, again, this is going to be from my perspective and my experience, is that men and women coming out of incarceration, again, addiction, brokenness, it's from past trauma. I mean, more times than not, they've just grown up in horribly broken situations, terrible homes, victimized themselves, hurt, beaten, abused, you name it. And I didn't have that perspective before. I was probably the guy that said, well, they made their bed, they got to lie in it. It was their choice. But I found out pretty quickly they all have a story. And it's pretty tragic, everything that's underneath the surface.
So how do you put together this personal responsibility piece and this external stuff that happens to people? Because it feels like people kind of go in one camp or the other.
Yes, that's a great question. In probably not to give a plug to Prison Fellowship, but I will. As a justice ambassador with Prison Fellowship, this is one of the things I've learned too, and I really believe this wholeheartedly because I think this is a biblical mandate. When we do things wrong or we commit a crime, right, there's a punitive element to that. There is discipline and there is correction, but there's also a restorative element to that. So I think those are the two sides of the coin. Mm-hmm. And I find a lot of comfort in that. Yes, you have to serve time. You have to pay a penalty. There's a consequence to your actions. But that does not live on forever. There's also a restorative element, and that's who God is. That's what Christ did, is to help come and restore us. So the past is gone. Now, behold, all things are made new. And so there's the hope. Sure, I paid my price. I served my time. Now, can I be restored? And I love being a part of the restoration side of that equation.
Re-entry ministry, you say restoration, is same thing?
I would say the same thing.
So what, for those that maybe don't know, how would you define re-entry? What are you dealing with there?
Well, I know for our ministry, we would say re-entry, again, whether you're coming out of prison, addiction, jail, it's about finding stability again. So we would say re-entry is about stabilizing.
Okay.
Let's get you in a good situation, stabilized, and remove barriers. We're going to help you with transportation, driver's licenses, maybe documentation that's been lost or needs to be recaptured, financial responsibility, a job.
And by the way, you know this, but for those who don't, that stuff is way harder than anybody realizes.
Yes. You can write it down on paper, but then to execute it is, because they're also wrapped up in supervision, whether that's probation or parole, a lot of obstacles, a lot of fines, a lot of monetary penalties from costs that they're still paying from the past. Driver's licenses suspended.
Oh no, it's daunting.
Yes. So those are the things we focus on. That's re-entry.
Okay. Bringing
stability, a safe environment. There's two mantras at Inspiration Ministries that we live by: safe and productive. We want a house to be safe, but we want it to be productive. And so everything is driving towards ultimately them leaving the program on a good trajectory, on a good foundation, with a job, with restored relationships. And that's ultimately what it's about. And really growth in their relationship with Christ, undergirding all of that.
When I have this visual in my head, and I'm gonna pick an age of a person, although obviously it varies, but you've got somebody that's is in a household for, call it 18 years, and whatever family dynamics they're in, unfortunately probably getting degrading more and more as a family unit is degrading. And then not everybody fits this model, but then at some point they do stuff and they get incarcerated. So they go into the criminal justice system, whether it's jail or prison. And maybe there's some restorative stuff. We all would know it's not as effective as it should be. So I'm sure there's more trauma and things that happen there. And then it's like, okay, now go out into the world. And I look at what you're doing in reentry, and I get that there's prison ministries that are in there, and frankly, you need an army. But that window of time of literally, and you can speak to this better than I can, the moment they get out of that door, out of that prison or jail, and I'm going to say the next year, has got to be one of the most important year, or however you guys think about it, in that person's life, whether they stay out or go back. I mean, it's just when you look on somebody's life, and then I look at what reentry ministry and recovery, you're kind of asked to help solve all the 30 years of crap that's happened to somebody.
Yes.
Am I thinking about it, characterizing it right?
No, you are thinking about it right. That's why I will say that, a 9-month program on paper, it's not like 9 months somehow solves decades of struggle, addiction, incarceration. But to bring somebody to a place of stabilization, a job, some structure, a community that really loves them, that's wrapped around them, that cares about them, a new church family, those are at least the beginning points and a foundation for future success. That's why, and I would say this to any reentry ministry or community out there, our postgraduate housing, or what we would call supportive housing, is critical, because you can finish a 9-month program, but then what? You have a drug conviction or a felony on your record. Where are you going to go to live? In any place that will rent to you, that's probably not the place you ought to be.
Right.
So it's very difficult. So we really believe very strongly in that other element, and that does two things. 9-month program, now they can continue on in housing. Remember, now they're working, and so they are stabilized, but now they get to remain in a community and continue to thrive, and have somebody maybe checking in on them, looking them in the eye, saying, "Hey, how you doing? Still good?" And it gives more time under their belt. And our experience has been, maybe 24 months to 30 months is where things really start to shift. Where now they're just reintegrated. They're maybe buying a house for the first time. They're getting married. They've got kids back. They're just really living life. They've been part of a church. They're a part of the greeting team. They're a part of the worship team. They're just living life.
I've had the pleasure of visiting you all, and in fact, I want my wife to come out, and we're gonna get that done. We've been trying for a while, but explain to the audience. So you have your community, and then you're in a small community, Butler. Am I right?
Yeah.
So describe, when you say Inspiration, and I'm going to say Inspiration's community, what all is in Inspiration Ministries community? And then I also want to know, how does Butler as a community fit in to this smaller community?
Obviously, somebody steps into a program and they get to know Inspiration Ministries, serving them, helping them remove obstacles, starting to learn to thrive, employment. But they're also part of I would say it's a camaraderie that they really start to, it's brothers together, because they literally do live in a family environment when they're in the 9-month program. So it's not just the staff that supports them, they're supporting each other, because they're literally building their own community. So even if they start to participate in different churches, they still have this common thread of Inspiration Ministries program. They're in classes together and they eat meals together, and they build relationships together. So that's the first component. Now, as a graduate, they're a part of a larger community. We've graduated well over 200 people just in the last handful of years. And so, again, even though they're spread out to other churches, they're still a community of themselves supporting one another. So that's a component of that. Now, once we recognize that already started happening organically, as a ministry, Inspiration Ministries, we made the decision to launch a church so that we gave them a platform and a place to actually gather together, those that chose to.
Okay, so describe that, because we had the pleasure, my wife and I have come in and own some of the real estate in the, what stage you call it? Essentially, it's those that are out of the program.
Supportive housing.
And so when I went and saw it, one of the cool parts is it's the churches, you could throw a...
Right across the street.
Yeah, a football. You could throw it over the church probably. So what's the idea of that church, and how did that all happen?
So again, I think we ended up partnering with a church. It ended up declining, especially through COVID. It's very difficult, but they opened up the use of their building. For several years, we utilized that building for programming and just activities. They kind of decided to wrap things up for their church group and said, hey, what would it be like if Inspiration Ministries, maybe this is the purpose for this church building? And we purchased that building, and it's been a little over 3 years ago, launched a church called the Refuge Community Church. And well, you've been there, Jeff. So when you stand in the parking lot of this church building, you could almost throw a stone and hit, probably 50 to 60 beds from houses and duplexes and townhouses.
But, by the way, again, 3 blocks off the main, 4 blocks off the main little drag of the city.
Yeah. So small town. So 2,500 people is the population of Butler. So we're a small community in this relatively small community. And the idea of Inspiration Ministries, one of our taglines is restoring community. And it's this idea, if we could restore and impact enough individual lives, at what point do we really tip the scales of impacting a whole community? So
one quick little story for you, and maybe I've told you this, but we needed to call on, I don't remember if it was power, it would call something about the duplex or whatever it is. And I was talking to the lady and I mentioned your name. Oh, we know Inspiration Ministry. Yeah, we love them. And so, it is a small town, but also just the feedback, they instantly knew who you were. And it was, I'm guessing it wasn't always positive.
Like anything else, there's some people that are fans and some people that aren't. The city's been good to us, all in all. There's their tensions. I would say this is what the tension really is more than anything, which is I would say a short-term focus. As a nonprofit organization, we're exempt from property taxes. So then there's this impression that, you're robbing the city of revenue. But the truth is, when you look at the investment in the town and the properties that we've rehabilitated and fixed up and rehabbed, the long-term result. We've sold 3 houses just in the last 3 years, 2 graduates that are now back on the tax roll that were improved. So I think that's just a short-term perspective. The impact of the city overall in the last 5-6 years, the city would say has been a tremendously positive impact.
So I have a text from you. I think it was either you or Andy that showed 2 pictures of a husband and wife pre-running, being the pastor of the church and post, which is such an amazing contrast. Tell everybody real fast, what am I talking about, and how'd that happen?
So Jeff's talking about Courtney and Marilyn Knurr, a husband and wife that went through their own program of recovery, came to work for Inspiration Ministries as case managers. Courtney was a case manager for us for a while, and his wife, Marilyn, worked for the women's team. Courtney, at one point along the way, said, you know what? I really feel called maybe to pastor a church at some point. And this is right at the time that we were looking at the church building and thinking about launching the Refuge Community Church. And so to support Courtney, we said, well, hey, we've got a church for you. You could become the pastor for the Refuge Community Church. And, their story is one of recovery and reentry, a lot of in and out of jail locally, and their transformation story. When they were going through recovery, they weren't even sure if they wanted to be married still together. They weren't sure if they liked each other anymore. But when God restored them individually, then they came back together, and they've just been a thriving component of the community. And Courtney makes a big impact in the community. He served on the Main Street committees. He served on different city committees over the years, just impacting the city now as a church of refuge for the community. In the church, it really started as just our community, the Inspiration Graduates community. But the truth is, there's something infectious about it.
Yeah.
That drew in a lot of the
outside
surrounding community.
So what's the mix today?
So I would say we started, when we launched the church, maybe we had 80 people meeting together.
And the majority Inspiration.
A majority of Inspiration graduates or family members.
Okay.
Now we probably have 250 to 300 in the mix. Is probably more community than it even is Inspiration folks, because we've created a culture of we've just created a culture of redemption and reconciliation, and that the old is gone. Behold, all things are new. And we have people there that are more concerned on who are you today. I don't care about who you were. I want to know who you are now.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this podcast is because just the passion and the transformation in your own life, from a business guy to now you're doing this. But the other thing is, I've tried to study as informally as much as I can, these different models of reentry. And here's what I will tell you. I don't know that there is a model that everybody should follow. There are attributes and whatnot, but I look at what you guys have done. And obviously with the work of the Holy Spirit and moving through that. But you all have been highly innovative. I doubt all this was played out like a business plan would have been put together, 15 years ago. And you just turned upside down. When you think about church engagement with this population, let's go to a church, existing church. Let's figure out how they can pour into these men and women. And your model, I'm sure some of that happens, but you've kind of flipped it on its head and said, no, our church inside of this Inspiration's, footprint, it's reaching out and influencing the community. That is so cool to hear.
This is just my theory.
Okay.
Andy meets Christ in a jail cell and then spends his first years as a Christian incarcerated in Florida DOC. And I think he just replicated his experience. When you think about what he established with Inspiration Ministries in a community, because we talk about, we do church Monday through Saturday and just celebrate on Sunday. Because he would ask me, I'm the churchy guy, right? And he would ask me questions like, so help me understand this church thing out here in the world. Go to church on Sunday mornings for a couple hours and then maybe a midweek service, and that's it. Because when he was incarcerated, his experience with church, with his brothers, it was every day, 24/7.
Yep.
They didn't hide anything. Everybody knew everybody's business. They were in it, really in it together. And I think he just replicated what he experienced in prison to a degree.
Well, when I was out there, I think Andy, I don't remember, I asked him some question and he goes, here, look at this. And he pulled out his phone. And when he's describing it to me, and maybe it was kind of like, oh, we have a group text. I don't know if that's what it was, but like a group text of this community. And so I don't know. He's like, look right here. There's 80 people on this group text. And he's like, but this is not just a normal group text. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And then he explained to me, he's like, see, this gal right here, her car broke down last Friday. She sent a text out to this group And there's 3 guys that are like, we're going to step up and help you, whatever, get your car fixed. And he gave other examples like that. And you're like, well, that's what community is supposed to be. And yet that most of us don't actually live in that type of community. I mean, it was powerful. And the other thing he said was, I think it was a younger gal, I think, who had 1 kid who's graduating. And I'm like, well, how's she going to do when she graduates? And his comment was, the guys in here, if she ever needs anything, they will help her in 2 seconds. They will make sure that she is successful. And you're like, I've got great friends. So if anybody's listening, but I mean, that's community. I mean, am I seeing something wrong or am I over exaggerating?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I just looked at that text group this morning.
You did?
Yeah. One of our guys, Jeff, had said, hey, he had hurt his foot, couldn't drive. I need to get to the grocery store today. Is there anybody that could run me there? In instant responses. The thing about community, just like family, sometimes just like our own families,
right.
It is messy. It's not easy. It's not some utopian. It's personalities and it's friction, and there's a lot of communication that has to happen. But there's something dynamic that happens in that is really pretty special, though, too.
Well, I'm going to go one step further. If you don't have some of that ugly communication stuff, it probably means you're actually not really living in community.
That's true.
I mean, just human nature.
That's true. I mean, because, when you have a lot of people and a lot of communities, the idea of you can tend to swing, and this is important. I really want to communicate this. You can swing towards wanting to talk about people instead of to people. But the Bible's pretty clear. Like, if you have an issue, you go to a person. Let's talk to people and not about people. Now, what'll happen in a community is that can be very good, and it can be very growth oriented to have good, fierce conversations with people, not about them with other people. That's gossip.
Right.
But when you talk to people. But the other thing that happens, if you want to really talk to somebody and they're not looking to grow or looking for accountability, then they will run. And they will run from those conversations, and they'll run from that accountability. And sometimes that's hard.
Yep.
And then sometimes, but everybody gets to be where they're at. Everybody gets to be where God's working at them at that point in time. So messy, dynamic, but good.
If I had a mic that I felt like I could drop, I would have probably dropped it on that one. But anything else you want to share before we sign off?
I would say this. From year 1 for Inspiration Ministries in 2012, I remember being blown away that people actually gave $8,000 year end, right? We had $8,000 roughly in contributions, people that just gave. And I remember just being blown away by that. So when I think about God doing more than you can think or imagine, and now the idea that we'll probably touch $4 million for our budget this year, and even beyond that, $10 million in capital campaigns of projects, it's really been more than I could think or imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of not despising small beginnings, because none of this happened overnight. It was a lot of hard work, day after day, year after year, incremental growth. I was thinking about this. I looked at this verse earlier today. I thought about it because we can get impatient, I think, at times. And in Proverbs 13, verse 11 says, a wealth gained hastily, could say even revenue, a ministry, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase. And that really fits with the idea that he who is faithful in little will be faithful in much. So if there's anybody listening today that you feel discouraged, please don't despair in small beginnings, but stay the course. God is faithful. And he's just been faithful over the long term. He really is. He really is.
Well, I love that message because we live in a world where there's instant gratification. There's, somebody got an idea and took it to Wall Street and made $1 billion, and that becomes a norm. And it's not the norm. Right. And in fact, in what you're doing on the relationship side, this stuff takes a long time. So as an entrepreneur myself, I'm heeding that word more than you realize. So
well, I think about it myself personally, but there's so many steps from building a good, robust, comprehensive, mature board.
Yeah.
Learning to manage the finances, learning to grow at his pace. Sometimes his timing means everything.
Yeah.
And I would say this would be one of the last pieces that I would say.
Okay.
Unless the Lord builds a house, the builders labor in vain.
Yeah.
And it's always his thing. It's never a Don thing or an Andy thing or an Inspiration Ministries thing. It's always been his thing. It's his house. So he gets to do what he wants. His hand's on the throttle to speed it up, slow it down. It's important. It's been important for me to always keep that in mind.
Well, it seems like he's got you running fast on some stuff, so go with it. But thanks for taking the time. This was, obviously I love chatting with you, but clearly your passion for this and willingness to risk by leaving that career to go do this. I'm sure today you don't probably think it was much of a risk, but it was. And I imagine it still is, but thank you for your example of your faithfulness to follow the call that God put before you.
Well, thank you, Jeff.